why do I feel like I wasn't appreciated? And then I was going to, what is my role in this thing?
Right.
We talked about.
I thought I was a partner. I thought I was an equal partner, participant in this thing.
Right.
What was happening in you, Kirk?
Well, I felt attacked. Kind of like, wow, that was heavy. That was critical. I completely personalized it.
Yeah.
Right.
Heard it as a direct criticism, feeling threatened and probably a bit underappreciated.
That's what I was going to say.
So this is our third and maybe final conversation from the book Difficult Conversations, authored by Stone, Patton, and Heen, 3 members of the Harvard Negotiation Project. And we have been illustrating some of the most helpful distinctions from that book. Tonight we're going to talk about, in every difficult conversation, there are actually 3 conversations that are happening simultaneously. 3 conversations are happening at the same time. There's the facts conversation. What are we talking about? What are you saying? What am I saying? What did I do? What did you do? What did you say I did? What am I saying you did? Those are the facts, right?
Yeah.
And that's where many Americans tend to hang out, in the facts conversation. But there's a second conversation that is equally important, and that's the feelings conversation. Okay, what am I feeling? How am I feeling? How are you feeling as we're having this conversation? So remember that.
So that's like an internal conversation that's happening for us?
Well, it's a conversation we don't typically have because we don't typically inquire about, so what are you feeling right now?
Okay.
And the authors would argue that that's a conversation that is equally important as the first conversation, which is the facts.
Because it's happening,
Okay.
whether we acknowledge it or not.
Yeah. And
Right.
you could argue in our society today, feelings trump facts in most conflicted situations. I think our American society today, church or otherwise, has so elevated the priority of feelings that it actually is more important than any of the reality, that all that.
Yeah.
How you feel and all that kind of thing. So those are 2 of the 3. Making sense so far?
I think so.
So what we're offering is, it's not enough to simply stick to the facts, ma'am. How each participant in the difficult conversation is feeling in the moment, is feeling about the topic, what feelings and emotions are being raised, that is every bit as important as the facts of what we think we're talking about.
Yeah. I get it.
And I would say that in pockets of society, that goes largely unexamined. But the third conversation is the big kahuna. This is the one that this is the part of the iceberg. You know, facts and feelings are the part of the iceberg that are above the water. But this massive, massive thing under the water is the third conversation, which is the identity conversation. What does this dialogue say about who I am, about who you are, about my position, my role in the church, about my position in this ministry, about how people see me or don't see me? All of those are components of the identity conversation. And that is the one that rules most of the way in most breakdowns, most difficult conversations.
So you're saying, like, who am I in light of this conversation, and who am I because of this conversation is sort of like what we're talking about.
Sweet.
Or who am I perceiving myself to be, or
So-
who am I
Ooh,
perceiving?
yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good
I'll
one.
give
The
you an example in a
perceiving
minute,
one.
which I think will help.
Yeah. And you said difficult conversation, which is that the same definition we had a couple
episodes ago. Which is?
Any conversation that you don't want to have. It's a difficult conversation.
That's it.
With someone else or yourself?
I think you could have it with yourself.
I feel like I have a lot of those.
Most of the rest of us usually have them with other people.
I love it.
But when you got the whole committee upstairs operating.
Oh. I thought we dismissed the committee a couple episodes
Oh, we did
ago.
2 episodes ago. Yeah. Well, if you want to, yeah, that's funny.
So think about what Kirk just said in our American culture, that when there's a difficult conversation, it seems that we are naturally thrown to facts. Who's got the best facts? Whose facts are the most logical?
Yeah.
Whose facts are correct and accurate?
Most reliable.
Most reliable. And so
Right.
since the Enlightenment, we think reason and logic and science and facts have become the most important ideas, ideas
Totally.
in every conversation, including difficult conversations. By feelings, we're talking about what, as Kirk said, what am I feeling?
Yeah.
And I think in the heat of the moment, with a difficult conversation, especially when I perceive that my identity is at stake, something about my identity is triggered, I'm not really attuned to that or feelings. I just want to be clearer about the facts.
Yeah.
Push your angle, your view, right?
My assumption or my conclusion or my decision. And so we're suggesting that one of these core competencies for higher levels of leadership is to recognize, become aware, and begin to practice noticing something other than the facts. What am I feeling? What are you what might you be feeling? Can I check in? Can we have a feelings conversation while we're talking about whatever the issue is?
Right.
And then attending to, being aware of, and noticing what's this conversation doing inside me with regard to my identity. Who am I? Who do I see myself to be? What's being threatened deeply in me that challenges it? Like, is he saying I'm not capable? Is he saying I'm not important? Is he saying I'm not, I don't think I'm feeling noticed or respected or honored? And so I'm in a whole different conversation with those factors operating, but all we're talking about is the facts. And so understanding the three conversations deepens my capacity to have a more thorough and complete conversation. Yeah? And I think it's brilliant. I think it's been helpful in every, in the environments in which I've served. So in light of this conversation, something happened yesterday as we were having a debrief, and you experienced some of these elements, and tell us what happened and how you see this relating to all that.
Yeah, yesterday so as we're doing projects like this and we're filming, we have kind of a regular feedback loop, debrief. We talk about, things to pay attention to for next time or how we could do things differently. And, don't exactly remember how I presented my feedback, but I offered it to us, and my perception was that Kirk's reaction to my feedback was he was less interested in my feedback.
That's a kind way of saying
There you go.
maybe how you experienced it.
So what then happened inside of myself was I started thinking through what are our norms? Like, am I supposed to give feedback? Yes, I think so. Why do I feel like I wasn't appreciated in the feedback I was offering? And then I was going to, what is my role in this thing? We talked
I
about.
thought I was a partner. I thought I was an equal partner, participant in this thing.
Right. Identity. Just right to
Yeah,
that.
the identity conversation.
Right to that identity piece.
Yeah.
All happening inside of me.
There you go.
What was happening in you, Kirk, is the feedback was delivered and offered, and the suggestion to improve us. How did that hit you?
Well, I felt attacked, which is probably not a feeling.
It's not, but
So whatever you're feeling
Threatened,
when you're feeling
you felt.
attacked, kind of like, wow, that was that was heavy. That was critical. Which wasn't your intention, but that's where.
Not even directed at you. It was us.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
like
and
that.
again, I completely personalized it.
Yeah.
Right.
Heard it as a direct criticism of something that I'd failed to do. My energy wasn't where it
Wow,
needed
bro.
to be, or I wasn't clear enough for something. I don't know for sure what it even for sure was. So yeah, so feeling threatened and probably a bit underappreciated.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
My identity was then challenged. Like, wow, do you have any appreciation for how hard I have to work to think this through and like formulate my words? And now you want me to have more energy or less energy, or like
Energy.
that.
Yeah, and it's a subjective response. Like somebody's energy could be different, and
Yeah,
so
because I
Yeah.
didn't feel like we had, I didn't agree with the criticism with the feedback at the time. But I want to say this: I was completely in the wrong in my response to you, which is what I apologize
We talked
for.
about, yeah.
on
Yeah.
the other episode.
Yeah.
And I mean that sincerely. You have every right to and are invited to give feedback and to recognize and notice things that others of us may or may not notice and offer them. There's nothing about the way you delivered your hand grenade that was inappropriate. You weren't snarky. You weren't. There's nothing like that. It was, I think, purely on my end. I became defensive, and I don't know why, but I did, and I regret it.
I think this is such a real, relatable example of what you guys are talking about. And as an unrelated to this side note, I love that we get to use it and we get to talk about it because,
Real-time relevant.
yeah, this happened last night when the cameras weren't rolling. And it's the kind of thing that I wish could have happened when the cameras were rolling, because
Yeah.
the same things were said when they weren't rolling.
Yeah. So I think there's a value in saying in every courageous conversation that we videoed, these three elements have been at work. And we want to say to the audience who's listening in and watching that in every conversation, it has provoked quite possibly three conversations
In them.
It's, oh man.
And so, to the degree that we can train ourselves to notice, to become aware, to practice identifying three specific conversations that are happening simultaneously, the possibility of our leadership, I think, will increase or expand or deepen. We'll be better leaders. And so I appreciate the opportunity to listen in again to what you guys were doing. I mean, the facts are clear. Nick was just simply saying, hey guys,
There's a thing to adjust.
I notice I could be right or wrong, but I just want to offer this as feedback because I have sensed or noticed this. That's the fact. And then we all have a feeling and response about the facts, and feel whatever we feel.
Yeah.
I think one of the things to clarify at this point is the difference between actual feelings and using the word feeling
Ooh.
in place of a thought. JB, you were saying off camera, as if we're trying to soften what it is we're thinking.
Yeah, I've been taught that in previous leadership things.
Give me an
play
example,
it-
example of that.
Like,
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
what do you mean, JB? What do you mean?
Well,
Yeah,
you know,
play
if
it
I
out.
can wrap my hand grenade in enough bubble wrap, maybe it won't hurt when I throw it at you. So I've got feedback that I want to give you, and instead of saying, you know, say my feedback is, hey, Kirk, I don't like your blue shirt, which isn't true. But instead of saying, hey, Kirk, I don't like your blue shirt, I could say, hey, Kirk, I feel like other color shirts look better on you.
Yeah. And
it's
you-
not a feeling.
You've used
It's
the
not
word
a feeling,
feel completely misrepresenting feelings.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Why
and
is that important? Why is it important to distinguish that?
in this conversation, we're trying to pay attention to the feelings that we have,
The actual feelings.
the actual
Okay.
feelings.
Yeah.
Mad, sad, glad, and then extensions and variations of that. But the
Yeah.
key feelings are simple. And many of us, including myself, have not had models to help us identify, recognize, because the feelings of anger color how I'm being with someone in every conversation.
Yeah.
The feeling of joy, pleasure, excitement colors every conversation I'm having. And so attending or being aware of and being able to identify and regulate
Right.
my own feelings
Yeah.
allows me to be a more mature and competent and resourceful
Right.
leader. So that's in my off the cuff.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, thanks.
some of what I think is the
Yeah.
value of doing it because it's in play.
Yeah.
And that's just me
yeah.
appreciating that you're having feelings
Yeah.
Right.
about what's being said, and my ability to invite you into that space, or my ability to honor your feelings, can help me maybe better manage or regulate myself in the conversation. So that's all I'm saying.
Good.
So knowing that there are 3 simultaneous conversations taking place
Yeah.
is helpful to the degree that it sparks our curiosity.
Boom. There it is.
So
Another one.
One of my favorite phrases, help me understand.
Yeah.
So, buddy, help me understand what you're feeling right now. Help me understand how this speaks to your identity. Or identity. Maybe you're having an identity conversation right now.
Right.
Is that possible?
Right.
Help me understand what might be in play.
Yeah.
So that's you being aware that there's 3 conversations happening, inviting someone who may not be aware
Oh no.
of those 3
No.
conversations
Right.
to start having them with you.
For sure. Well, it's to explore them. So you're doing a performance review from somebody on your staff at church, and you have to deliver some suggestions, some criticisms, and clearly the employee is not responding in a charitable way,
Right.
like I did last night.
Evasive, defensive,
Yeah.
aggressive.
Which who likes performance reviews?
So it's interesting. One of the phrases that I learned to ask a person when they're emotionally engaged is, Kirk, describe your mood. Describe my what? Describe. See how gently I'm speaking?
Yeah.
Describe your mood. Well, I guess I'm exasperated, frustrated, aggravated, angry. Okay, awesome. Is that, what do you notice? I don't want to be, so like,
Yeah.
so like that.
We're
So
having a whole different
exploring-
conversation, right?
We're exploring that. It's not bad or wrong for the person to be feeling whatever they're feeling. The question is that how they want to be
Right.
operating right now?
Right.
That's right.
Could there be an identity conversation in play?
Yeah.
These 3 conversations can become part of how our ministry team does life together, does projects together, does work together.
Yeah.
So, for example, like Nick, you said, man, that thing triggered an identity conversation in me. If we have that common language, then we can explore that in love with
Right.
one another.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I totally get
Yeah.
how my identity can get knocked
Yeah.
off its moorings
Yeah.
based on this or that tough conversation I'm involved in.
And I think in the absence of knowing that there are three conversations happening simultaneously, the tendency would be to have one of those three highlighted or evaluated or explored. But in the absence of feeling and identity, the conversation may never really feel completed. Or we didn't have the full conversation. And Christians are notorious for having a conversation and afterwards we feel we weren't heard, or
Right.
we weren't seen, or we weren't understood because we never got to the feeling and the identity, so it seems like it was an incomplete, unresolved, kind of difficult conversation. And we're saying there's a better way. There's a more positive way to have the full, complete conversation, and if we don't, then it's going to resurface in ways that are unhealthy and unproductive, not just for you, but for the others
And the
and ultimately the organization.
Yes. Wow.
And so we're encouraging full conversations, understanding that there's three different conversations happening
So
simultaneously.
can I ask a question? So
Please.
it feels like there's two pieces to this. There's the internal conversation I'm having with myself,
Correct?
and then there's an awareness around the possibility of the conversations that the person I'm in a conversation with is having inside of themselves, and therefore we're in a conversation, and
Yeah.
so for me to be attentive to
All six components.
all of it, it's like my three,
Yes.
their three,
There are three.
Yeah.
3 and 3.
and the whole reason for this would be to really pursue loving them in the moment.
That's right.
And then also, it seems like if I'm attentive to like that identity piece last night for me, I went to this place of, oh man, do I have a role in this
In this
we've-
project.
Do
in
I
this
belong?
project? Do I belong? How do they see my
Yeah.
contribution? Are
Am
they
I just
questioning
eye candy?
am I just eye candy? Are they questioning my
Yeah.
my contribution, which does, I think, invite me to into a conversation with the Lord about my identity, right? Like,
Well,
am
Wow.
I? Is
Yeah.
that?
so as you were saying, 3 in me, 3 in them. Of course, I went to the Trinity, so maybe there's conversations spiritually. Am I listening to what God is saying as well for me?
Because
It's a game changer.
he's not saying you don't belong, Nick. He's not saying your contribution's not valuable. He's not saying those things, and that seems like, oh man, if I'm aware, I could stop in that moment and settle myself because I'm going, Lord, this is not how you see me,
That's right.
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
could
Now,
have
here's
been
Here's a
helpful.
thought. If one of us knows that we need to have a conversation that could become difficult, what if I led with identity affirmation?
Wow. Wow.
Nick, you are such a valuable part of this team, and I am so grateful, so grateful. Like if you'd have said that, if you'd have teed up your feedback with something like that, probably would have completely disarmed. Not that you should have, but I'm just saying as an example. Or if I would do that, well, you are such a valuable part of this team, and I really, really appreciate and honor your contribution. Thank you for that.
I can say you've done that with me. I mean, I can't name the times, but there's been multiple times where I think you've led with that approach with me. So I've experienced that from you.
So do you feel like that's the opportunity to sort of settle the identity conversation before it could hypothetically start to go awry?
Yeah, if I know that we're about to have I know, you don't know, but I know we're about to have a conversation that could become difficult. I'm just thinking this out loud.
Yeah.
Right? Like what if I lead with identity affirmation, which is so easy to do
Yeah.
for you three guys and everybody else that we have the privilege to do ministry with.
Yeah.
I think that could be a leadership competency that could be really valuable. Don't forget identity.
I like
Don't
that.
forget how important that is to every one of us.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing, and it reassures the person with whom I'm speaking that I care about them.
Yeah.
I notice the core, the deepest part of them. So I don't want them going there or questioning whether or not I value them as a
Yeah.
person. That's huge.
Yeah, you know what this
That's
is
huge.
reminding me of? I think I've mentioned it a few times in different conversations, but you know, I love The Chosen, and just watching
Yeah.
and reading also Jesus and the woman at the well. It just feels like these three conversations are happening where, you know, it's all facts at the beginning.
It is.
Like, could you get me some water? And like, what are you doing here in the middle of the day? What are you doing here in the middle? Like, there's all these facts, but you can feel the emotions that she's having. And it's interesting. I think I noticed last night that the conversation that we were having got settled when Nick started sharing about identity. And I don't know if that's a common thread that the authors of Difficult Conversations would say, that identity is where often we find things get settled in when we have the identity conversation. I don't know. But I noticed that last night, and I noticed, you know, Jesus and the woman at the well, when he went to identity at the end, here's someone who is your identity. I see you're looking to worship God. And the identity conversation she was having is, how can I worship God when I'm not allowed to here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he starts having that conversation about in spirit and in truth, and on this, neither on, you know, the temple's not on this mountain or any
mountain,
other
yeah.
mountain. And I mean, amazing to see that even play out there.
Yeah. And the contrast in his understanding of what was going on in her. We can talk about the facts, but there's bigger issues.
Yeah.
So let's get to the feelings that you're having about yourself and about the facts. And ultimately, let's keep going till we hit pay dirt by who you are to
Identity.
me.
Yeah.
And how I view you, how I think about you in such a positive way. I think it's really insightful, John. Yeah. Well, should we bless these
Please, would you?
guys? Yeah. We bless you as competent, courageous, godly leaders who want more of all God has for you, so that others beyond yourselves could be blessed and favored and honored and appropriately challenged to be more of who God says they are and can become. May you guys be gifted and grow to great leaders, knowing that in every conversation, you're paying attention to the facts because they're important, to feelings because they're in operation, but also, and most importantly, touching people's identity so they feel deeply loved in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.